Nobody wanted the 11:48 p.m. train. It ran through the mountains between two forgotten towns where almost no one lived anymore. The railway company had tried shutting the route down twice, but every attempt ended the same way. The workers refused to return. Mark didn't believe ghost stories. He was a railway inspector, and his job was simple. Ride the entire route, document the condition of the tracks, and file a report. The conductor handed him his ticket without making eye contact. "Whatever you do," the old man whispered, "don't look into the last carriage after the tunnel." Mark laughed. "There is no last carriage. The train only had 4. The conductor said nothing. The journey was quiet. Rain streaked across the windows. Every few minutes the train passed abandoned stations swallowed by darkness. At exactly 12:31 a.m., it entered Black Ridge Tunnel. The lights flickered once, twice. Then everything went completely dark. For 15 seconds, the train rolled through absolute silence. When the lights returned, Mark frowned. There were now 5 carriages. He counted them twice through the connecting doors. 5. He stood up. Someone behind him quietly said, "Sit down." He turned. No one. Curiosity won. He walked toward the final carriage. Each step made the air colder. The door creaked open by itself. Inside sat around 20 passengers. None of them moved. None of them blinked. Every single person stared out the windows. Mark cleared his throat. "Excuse me?" "Nothing." He walked farther inside. Their clothes looked decades old. Some wore military uniforms. Others looked like tourists from another era. Then one woman slowly turned her head. Her face was pale. Her eyes were completely black. She smiled. "You weren't supposed to see us." Instantly every passenger looked at him. At the same time, without making a sound, the emergency brakes slammed. Mark was thrown against the floor. When he opened his eyes, the carriage was empty. Completely empty. The train had stopped in the middle of the mountains. Police arrived an hour later. They found Mark unconscious. He kept repeating the same sentence. There were five officials reviewed every security camera. The footage showed only 4 carriages during the entire trip. No extra passengers. No mysterious carriage. Nothing. The case was closed. 3 months later, another inspector took the same route. Before boarding, he laughed after hearing the old rumor. As the train disappeared into Black Ridge Tunnel, the station security camera captured something impossible. 4 carriages entered the tunnel. 5 came out. And in the last window a terrified man was pounding on the glass. It was Mark. Still wearing the clothes from the night he disappeared. Mark was officially declared alive. That was the strangest part. The police found him beside the tracks with nothing more than a concussion and a few cuts. He had never been reported missing because, according to every document, the train had arrived exactly on schedule. Only Mark insisted something impossible had happened. No one believed him. Until the nightmares began. Every night he dreamed of the Fifth Carriage. The passengers never moved. They simply watched him, waiting. On the 7th night, one of them finally spoke. "You're almost back." Mark woke up screaming. His bedroom clock read 12:31 a.m. The exact minute the train entered Black Ridge Tunnel. He tried to move on. He quit his job, sold his apartment, moved hundreds of miles away. For a while, the dreams stopped. Then one afternoon he noticed something strange. While walking through a crowded subway station, he saw a familiar face. An old woman. Gray coat. Black eyes. She was sitting on a bench, staring directly at him. The same woman from the Fifth Carriage. Mark blinked. She was gone. Over the next month, more passengers appeared. A businessman standing across the street. A nurse in a supermarket. A soldier reflected in the window of a CAF. No one else reacted to them. Only Mark could see them. And every time they appeared there was one more than before. 20, 21, 22. They were getting closer. Desperate, Mark returned to Black Ridge Tunnel. The railway had been abandoned after a landslide, and weeds covered the tracks. The entrance was sealed with a steel gate. Spray painted across it were 3 words. "Don't count them." He laughed nervously. Too late. He already knew there had been 20 passengers. Or had there been 21? He suddenly couldn't remember. His heart began racing. He counted again in his mind. 22, no. 23. Every time he tried to remember, the number increased. Then he heard footsteps. Slow, metallic, echoing from deep inside the tunnel. 1, 2, 3. Not walking toward him. Walking out. Mark backed away. A hand reached through the darkness. Then another. Then dozens more. Pale fingers gripped the rails as silent figures emerged from the tunnel one by one. Each face belonged to someone he'd seen in the Fifth Carriage. Each pair of black eyes was locked on him. The old woman stepped forward first. She smiled, then quietly asked, "Can you tell us how many of us there are now?" Mark looked. He shouldn't have. He counted without thinking. By the time he reached 50, he realized something horrifying. The last person standing at the end of the line was himself. Smiling, Mark stumbled backward and fell onto the gravel. His double stood perfectly still at the end of the line, wearing the same jacket, the same torn jeans, even the same scar above his eyebrow. The only difference, its eyes were completely black. It smiled wider than any human face should. Then every figure stepped back into the darkness. Together. Without turning around. The tunnel fell silent. Mark ran. He never looked back. By sunrise he was sitting in the office of a retired railway engineer named Walter Briggs, the last man who had worked the Black Ridge line before it closed. Walter listened without interrupting. When Mark finished, the old man opened a dusty filing cabinet and pulled out a newspaper dated October 18, 1964. The headline read, "37 passengers vanish after midnight train enters tunnel." No wreckage had ever been found. No bodies. No explanation. Only the locomotive had returned. Completely empty. Walter sighed. They never disappeared. Mark frowned. "What do you mean?" "They're still riding." Walter revealed something he had hidden for decades. Every few years, someone reported seeing an extra carriage. The witnesses all described the same passengers. The same black eyes. The same smile. And every witness disappeared within a year. Except one. Walter himself. "Why are you still alive?" Mark asked. The old man stared at the floor. "Because I gave them someone else." Before Mark could ask what he meant, Walter quietly locked the office door. "You've been marked," he whispered. "They don't leave until they have a replacement." The lights went out. A freezing wind rushed through the room. The old radio on Walter's desk crackled to life by itself. A conductor's voice echoed through the speaker. "Final stop. 1 passenger must remain." Then came the sound of a train horn. Impossible. There hadn't been trains on this line for years. The floor began to vibrate. Outside the windows, rails that had been buried under weeds suddenly gleamed like polished steel. A beam of light cut through the darkness. The midnight train rolled silently toward the station. 4 carriages. Then a 5th. Walter looked at Mark with tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry." He unlocked the back door and shoved Mark outside. The train stopped without a sound. The 5th carriage door slowly opened. Inside, every passenger was smiling. Except one. Mark's double stood in the aisle, holding out a ticket. On it were just 4 words. "Welcome back, Mr. Turner." Mark had never told anyone his last name. Mark stared at the ticket. His hands were shaking. He had never told Walter his last name. He had never shown anyone his identification. Yet there it was. "Welcome back, Mr. Turner. Not welcome aboard. Welcome back. As if he had already been there before. The conductor stepped out of the fifth carriage. His uniform was spotless despite looking decades old. His face was hidden beneath the brim of his cap. He extended one gloved hand. Your seat is waiting. Mark backed away. I'm not getting on that train. The conductor nodded slowly. You already did. A cold wave rushed through Mark's body. Memories he didn't recognize flooded his mind. Rain. A crowded platform. A little girl holding a red balloon. A whistle. Then darkness. He suddenly remembered. Not months ago. Not years ago. 42 years ago. He had boarded this train as a child. His mother had fallen asleep beside him. The train entered Black Ridge Tunnel and never came out. At least, not the real one. Everything since then, his childhood, school, college, career, friends, apartment, had never happened. It had all been a perfect illusion. A life created to keep him from remembering. He hadn't escaped the train. He had never left it. The passengers slowly stood. One by one. Their black eyes faded. For the first time, they looked human. Not monsters. Just frightened people. Waiting. The little girl with the red balloon walked toward him. She took his hand. We've been waiting for you to wake up. Behind her, Mark saw his mother. Exactly as she had looked the night she died. She smiled through tears. I'm sorry it took so long. The conductor removed his cap. His face was gone. Only darkness remained. The journey is over. At sunrise, hikers found an abandoned railway platform. There was no train. No tracks. Only a single leather ticket lying on the ground. The date printed on it was impossible. October 18, 1964. Destination. Black Ridge passengers. 38. The police logged the ticket as evidence. When the officer finished the paperwork, he frowned. The document listed 39 passengers. He blinked. Looked again. Now it read 40. He quietly closed the file. He never spoke about it again. But every year, on October 18, people living near the abandoned tunnel report hearing the same sound just after midnight. A train passing through the mountain. And if they count the carriages, they always stop at 4. Because no one who counts 5 is ever seen the same way again.